Hello, this is your host, Cheryl C. Jones, with a warning. This podcast contains true stories of individual genius that may inspire you to take action in your own life. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello and welcome to Getting the Best Results podcast, where each week we talk about shortcuts or techniques that will help you get the best results in life and business. It's all about learning a new method or approach, or possibly an insight or an idea that will contribute to your life in a positive way. I'm your host, Cheryl Jones. I'm an author, facilitator, and professional speaker. My focus is on helping individuals and small businesses break through their common thinking to create bigger, better, bolder results. You can find me at simplythebestresults.com, where you will find lots of resources to help you break through. Now let's get on with this week's show. This week our guest is Tami Gulland. Tami works with conscious women leaders to access their missing tools, those missing tools that allow them to show up and lead in a more impactful, authentic, and connected way in their lives, relationships, work, and in the world. These women leaders can look at a lot of different ways, but most of them are business owners, service providers, and professionals who are high-achieving, creative, and resourceful problem solvers. They have typically experienced high levels of success in their life, and they have one or more areas in their life that they'd like to change, improve, or evolve so they can make a bigger contribution. Please help me welcome Tami Gulland. Welcome, Tami.
Hi, Cheryl. It's wonderful to be here.
Well, I'm so glad you're able to make time for us today. I've been waiting and excited about having you on the show because I know that you bring a unique perspective to just, how we see the world and how do we achieve results. And I just know that there's so much goodness there. I can't wait to talk about it.
I'm excited to be here as well and really thrilled to spend this time together, and I can't wait to see what unfolds for us.
Oh, exactly. Well, this is intended to be, a conversation about getting the best results and what it takes to do that and how you've achieved that. And I know that you have a lot of wonderful skill sets, but very often it's more about that innate genius that you bring to the table, those unique gifts and talents that people bring to the table that make them successful. They've figured out how to capitalize on them. I like to call it their genius, their, that unique quality that really has helped those individuals make it a success somewhere in their lives. Success doesn't always mean about business. Sometimes it's personal success or relationship success. So before we really get into all that goodness, all that kind of, genius portion of it, I think it would be helpful if our audience knew a little bit more about you. Would you be willing to share a little bit about your background and upbringing and kind of what's brought you to this point?
I'd be delighted to. So I maybe don't have a typical background and upbringing, but I will share with you some of the things that I think have shaped my life specifically. I was born very empathic and intuitive, only I didn't actually realize that was true about myself until later in my life. And through the course of living my life, I understood and learned that everything is energy, everything. Our thoughts are, the chair we're sitting on is, everything is energy. And what I discovered is energy is actually our first language. So some of us are just more naturally in tune with that language. Some of us really just pick up and see and feel that language. And here's the thing, everybody can learn to be more in tune with that language and enhance their energy skills. And you might think, well, that's great, but what does that do for me? It actually creates better results. It helps you live on purpose, and it helps you experience more joy and more fulfillment in your life, in your relationships, in every area. So it's not just like, oh, that's a nice to-do. It totally makes a difference. It's a game changer. But what happened for me is being very intuitive, being very empathic, how I actually began to understand that energy was my first language, that we speak, that we understand. And what happens when you actually don't manage that energy is when I was growing up, because I grew up the youngest of what I consider 14 children, and I'm going to explain that a little bit more. I had, in my family, there were 6 children. In my aunt and uncle's family, there were 8. But we grew up in the same house. We grew up in a big farmhouse in Wisconsin. Yeah, and so there were 14 kids, and I was the youngest and smallest of all of them. So you can imagine, with 11 boys and 3 girls on a dairy and hog farm in Wisconsin, it was anything but calm and quiet.
I can imagine.
This was the perfect place for me to really have the opportunity and the challenge, both, to be an empathic intuitive. So it really took me a long time to discover that why I never felt, air quotes, normal. Like, why did I never feel normal? And then also how to understand and embrace these gifts that I had and then hone them. Because when I honed them, I learned how to use them to help myself and then to help others, how to leverage and manage their energy. And actually from all this, I developed a body of work called Energetic IQ, and that is about understanding and applying specific energy skills and tools that allows people to be much more engaged in their life and in command of their own energy, their experiences, and their results. And that's what I talk about, having a higher level of energetic IQ. We all have a baseline, and it's different for everybody, but you can enhance that, and it will enhance your life.
Wow. So if we could, okay, so I have so many questions right now, but if we could go back to your childhood, and
Sure.
what was it like being one of 14 kids in this house with this, it sounds like a unique sensitivity that maybe the others didn't understand or even have, surely they had, but they didn't have access to the knowledge or the awareness maybe. How did that play out for you?
It was a lot of things. It was overwhelming. It was confusing because I would be going along, playing or whatever, and all of a sudden I'd have a headache or my stomach would hurt out of nowhere.
Oh.
And I'd be like, and I wouldn't know. I thought that was just something going on with me. And a lot of the times it actually wasn't even my own energy that I was sensing and feeling. And I would see different energy orbs as a kid, and I just thought, I must be crazy. Like, I'm not seeing that. And so these are the conversations I'd have in my head about what was happening for me. And it was interesting. It was intimidating in many ways to have all this energy and being so sensitive. And I didn't understand, and this was even outside of the home I grew up in, but going to school, I didn't understand why and how people could be so mean to each other. It didn't make any sense to me. Like, it did not compute. And I think because I could feel that wasn't really our true nature to be like that and to show up in the world that way. And that was really outside of my family of origin, but more in the world, but as a young child.
So were you, so I heard a couple things. So one was, were you picking up other people's maladies or their stomach aches or their headaches, or was it, do you think your body was overwhelmed with just so much, picking up so much energy from so many different people?
I could feel the energy of other people, so a lot of times It was that. I was actually tuning into, and I didn't know it. Like all of a sudden I'd be like, wow, why, out of nowhere, what is happening? It took me a long time to figure out that was what was going on, because as an empath, you can feel other people's energy, emotions, as if they were your own or even amplified. And so that was just really confusing to me. I'm like, I don't get this. Like, what's going on? And I would absorb other people's energy. And I think that was sort of my energy system way of trying to process and get it out of me in a way, or to be of service in another way. So it took me, like I said, a long time to unravel all these pieces, but it was like the perfect laboratory to be like, oh, this is what happens when there's a lot of energy and it's not managed properly, and here's what's going on, and to really start to learn from that learning lab.
Yeah, you definitely had a hands-on training experience there.
And being with animals, being on a farm, it was a very grounding experience. So that was great because I had all these energetic and intuitive skills, that it was hard for me to be in my body, like reside in my body, but then I had these other grounding forces around me that helped, being in nature, being around animals, to kind of help to put me in, and my mom was very structured, and so I think that also helped to ground me in very practical ways. So it was kind of like having this mix of things going on that then later helped me to apply all those things I learned in a practical way in the world.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I mean, those of us who've not lived on a dairy or hog farm at all or anything like that, you know, don't really have a real sense of what that is. But that, in my observation, let's say, you know, to me it seems like it's a very, like you said, connected, earth-grounded kind of environment versus maybe somebody who grew up and, you know, was born in a major city, you know, like maybe New York City or something that was much more high energy, constantly go, go, go kind of thing. And I could see how that really could serve you in this scenario, you know. Boy, I can't even imagine what a child with your sensitivity coming into one of those other environments they'd probably be bouncing off the walls, you know. Bless their hearts.
I think that's true.
So.
I do think that's true. Another piece of just being on a farm and being raised on a farm is there's a routine that you're part of, and there's also the rhythm of the seasons that supports you. And so those are grounding forces as well. So those can be really beneficial even if you're in a big city, if you know how to tap into that support.
And is that where the energetic IQ comes in terms of managing your energy? Is that what you're referencing, is tapping into those seasons or those cycles? And is that part of that?
It's part of it. It's not the only part of it. A lot of it has to do with understanding how we're each individually wired, because it's different for everyone. So when you can understand how you're wired, it helps you to navigate in the world and in your world in a much more confident way, but in a much more successful way. Because if you're trying to do things other people's way, but that's not how you're actually wired, it is a huge source of frustration. And you might be wondering, why can I not get to where I need to go or where I want to go or create these results? So it is about managing your energy. It's about understanding it, and it's also about tapping into resources that you maybe haven't thought of that are here actually to help support you. It can be rhythms in your environment. It can be routines. But it can also be your own internal wisdom that maybe you're turning to the outside world a lot for answers. And it's okay to be taught and to learn things, but then to take it back within yourself. What resonates? What is my truth within this bigger scope?
That's exciting. So it sounds like to me that if people have had difficulty following somebody else's rules or doing it in a prescribed way, that it may not be that there's a problem with them or a problem with the source of the organized process, but maybe it's just it doesn't fit with their energetic pattern or energetic IQ, if you will, like you were just describing. Yeah, I know somebody like that.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. I do know somebody. Okay, it's me, because you know you can give me the recipe for the cookies, but I'm going to add more chocolate chips and probably more cinnamon and maybe even some more vanilla, just because.
Okay. And that's part of being a unique expression of who you are, because
Absolutely.
we all have our own recipe.
Yes. And isn't that what we want? We don't want to. Most of us don't want to be like everybody else. We want to be our own version of us, you know, and not a copycat of something else. Yeah.
Ultimately, that's true. Yeah. Ultimately, that's true. And there can be fears that come up with standing out and being different.
True. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, let's talk a little bit more about your genius, because I think you've already kind of encapsulated it or kind of broken it down for us in terms of the empath and intuitive nature of things. I want to talk about how that's worked out for you. So typically I ask during this podcast, what is your genius, and, how has that supported you, or how have you leveraged it in this world to have success? So how would you describe your genius?
It's such a great question, and you have to really think about that because sometimes we're so close to it, it's like we can't see it. It's like right there. I would say my genius, as it's been reflected back to me, is utilizing my empathic and intuitive skills to read energy, to see and perceive what other people can't see or sense, so the unseen. In addition to that, I would say I am naturally wired to be a catalyst for change for my clients and for people in my life. It's not something I sought to do, but it is something I carry with me all the time and have just learned to turn and lean into it and embrace it. But that looks a few different ways.
Yes.
This idea of this, this idea of this empathic and intuitive skills and this being a catalyst. So one way it looks is that I help my clients identify energetic, what I call anchors, holding them back and help unhook them from these anchors because that tends to be what keeps them stuck, and that prevents them from being successful in the area they most want. So maybe they have an amazing business, but in their relationship, their personal relationship, they're just really struggling. And so the thing about it is these anchors can be mental, they can be emotional, spiritual, physical even. But as we talked about, everything is energy, including each of us, and we have an energetic field that surrounds us and our physical body. So energy from the past can actually get stuck in our physical body and our energy field. Our habitual thinking can get us stuck in patterns and what I call like ruts. You know, you're in a rut, you can't like think your way out of it. And then heartache and heartbreak from the past, from life experiences. Like life has curveballs, right? We experience different things. And that can constrict our energy, too, and what is possible for us and limit what we see that's possible for us. And we can get stuck in these loops like Groundhog Day. And so that's one of the ways. And that's not a fun place to be. You know, you watch the movie and you're like, all right already, like make a change, right? And it's that energy of, oh, I can't stand this one more day.
Right.
And another way that looks is I actually receive downloads for the missing tools, the insights, the techniques, what I call the specific recipe, because there are recipes. We each have our own recipe to help each of my clients to get the results they desire. And the thing of it is, we are each unique individuals, and that is what happens. These missing tools are unique to the person in front of me. So using these tools and helping them to apply them forges their own path to success. The other thing that happens, it is fascinating because when someone enters my energy field, when my client and I are working together, I actually call in their spiritual helpers, their divine team I call them, and together my client and I and their team work together, and then I am shown their path forward. I can see and discern where they're getting stuck or why they're not getting the results they want, and I can see the path forward. And so as a guide, it is cool, and it's such an amazing honor, truly, to be in someone's life in such an intimate way. And I call myself a guide on your side because that is really how I work with my clients. I support them to identify their priorities, to focus on them, and then to take the action needed to get the results they want. And the thing of it is, people can say, well, you should prioritize this or that or the other thing, but that's not you as a person. You as a person have your own values and your own priorities, so that's what we're looking to help you implement. And so we work together then to apply the insights and the breakthroughs that come through so there can be lasting transformation, not just like, oh, yay, I got a new idea, but I don't do anything with it. It's actually applying that. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question because you said, let me ask you a quick question. You said when my clients come into my energy field, do you have to be present with them or, is that a metaphor or tell me about that?
It's a metaphor. They don't actually, I work with all my clients online and over the phone, with the rare exception of a few live or in-person events. So I do this all remotely, and I can tap into their part. Like when we join together, we kind of create a field of our own, and within this field is where these activations and the catalysts take place, the changes and transformation take place, and then with their spiritual team as sort of my board of advisors, they direct and guide me as to what's first, second, and third and how to best help the client.
Very cool. Tell me some more about how you use your skill sets and to support people.
So when I my work with my clients is very collaborative. So I help them to uncover their resistance and self-sabotage. So we talked a little bit about, like, everybody wants to have their own voice and their own self-expression. And ultimately that is true. And we can get trapped in or stuck in resistance and self-sabotage because on one level we totally want to be out there expressing ourselves and making our biggest contribution. And on another level, we're like, oh my gosh, how about I just stay behind the pack and like keep myself a little bit hidden or smaller so that I'm not at the forefront and maybe subject to people who might say, you know what are you doing? Or who do you think you are? Or whatever that is for us. So our ego wants to keep us small. But the whole piece is to bridge all of that, to break through the ego, to really tap into the bigger contribution coming through you. And my work with clients is about helping them own their power, their truth, and to really trust themselves in areas they weren't able to. And sometimes that means putting themselves out in a way that they are not accustomed to, which can be uncomfortable, and yet when they do it, it can be extremely liberating, and then that starts the momentum towards a bigger life.
Really cool. Very cool. So there is no nutshell to be able to, all of that is your genius is what I hear you saying.
It all flows together.
Yeah, it all flows together. So if I was going to try to encapsulate a little bit, it sounds like it's your empathy, or that's not the right word because that's a different word. You're being empathic as well as intuitive skills and connective skills and listening skills and so forth, all of that blended together to be of service to others. That's it's not just like, oh, well, I can play the guitar really well or something. It's nothing that's singular, or and not that that's small. There's some fantastic guitar players out there. The thing is it's broad, and I think that maybe more, if we were all to really sit down and look at what our genius is, I think we would be able or should be able to describe it as you've described it, and it sounds like every opportunity you are working with a client, you are in your genius. And how cool is that? Just the energetic fulfillment and, would be really, I think, would be pretty awesome. I think, is that the case for you?
Absolutely. And I really believe that we're all multi-talented, multifaceted, and sometimes having those multifacets can be challenging to describe or try to help people understand how you can contribute. Yet, there is a way to bring all of our gifts together in how we contribute to the world.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right about that. Well, and so far you shared with us how your genius serves others, which is, and how you discovered your genius. So I'm curious to know how your genius has helped you achieve more, or get what you've wanted, or create your dreams.
It's a great question. In so many different ways, really. Like, there's general ways, there's specific ways. I'm going to start with personally. Personally, it has helped me to be a better person in the world, a better mom, for sure, wife, and to be able to help others and to serve others. And that is a driving factor for me. I am definitely wired to be of service. Specifically, if you want to talk about results or goals, I have written 2 books. I've contributed to several others. I have been able to speak and in ways, speaking, I would avoid speaking before. I didn't really want to speak. I didn't feel comfortable speaking. I didn't like speaking. And I ended up really embracing that. And I was in Toastmasters. I was actually the president for a while. I've spoken on bigger stages. And I've been able to live my passion through my coaching business for the past 17 years. And it has not always been easy. It has not always been a straight shot. I laugh because I say, your path sometimes goes uphill. It's not just like, oh, okay, nice flat, straight surface that goes directly to where you're going. And then just generally helping me to let go of patterns and habits and beliefs, to trust myself more, to focus on getting the right things done. And by right, again, using air quotes, like the right things for me, becoming more congruent to who I am. And knowing that just because my past, like, I think it can be super easy, especially as an entrepreneur, to look at other people and be like, oh, I should be doing that or this. And to really start letting go of that and saying, you know, their path has nothing to do with me in terms of what I'm doing. My path is my path, and it doesn't have to look like anybody else's. So being able to trust that and lean into that more and more, finding my own voice, getting out of my own way, like all the things that I help my clients do, I also continue to do, using the genius, using the intuitive and the empathic and the guidance that I receive.
That's awesome. And have you done continuing ed or something that has helped you hone these skills? Or what have you done to kind of grow them, if you will? Absolutely. I'm constantly growing my skill set. I'm constantly learning. I am such a lifelong learner. I just cannot help myself. That is totally who I am. And so lots of different ways. You know, it could be trainings, it can be books, it can be applying what I know. But I'm constantly doing things to upgrade my mindset, my consciousness, to let go. And sometimes it's just life. Your experiences in life, you are met with challenges, and it's like, okay, it's not about reading something in a book. It's like, how am I going to live this moment? And it's falling down, it's getting back up. It's falling down, it's trying something new. It's falling down. You know, it's like it's a constant practice, and that's where the real change happens, is in the moment. And I'm not perfect. Yeah. It's a work in progress, right? Every day. Aren't we all? Absolutely. And I think if we can just understand that, we can be a little bit more gentle with ourselves in the process. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, that makes me think and to ask, are there some practices or activities or things that you would recommend that others do to help them tune in and get on board with themselves, if you will, to be more in alignment with their own energy and purpose? Absolutely. So there's a couple things that come to mind, and the first one is to be in your body. And you might think, what in the world does that even mean? So in our society, in the United States, we tend to value people who are in their heads, intellectually wise and academically savvy, and that there's nothing wrong with that. But if we are spending our life in our head, we're actually disconnected from so much wisdom and power, because our body is our vehicle. And when we're up in our head trying to figure things out, or when we're worried about the future, or when we're, focused on the past, we're not in this present moment. And the present moment, like being here now, is really our only point of power. So when we begin to pay attention to our body, to the raw sensations moving through our body, to our feet on the floor, to our seat on the chair, to our heart beating, to our breathing, any of those things can help you to become more in touch with your body and to begin to reconnect to the wisdom and the power that is held within the body and being connected internally. So that's one thing. That's great. What else? The second thing is to really learn how your energy works, because, as I mentioned, we're all wired differently, and we have each an energetic blueprint. And this blueprint, when you understand how you take in and process the energy of life around you, then we can be much more masterful. We can become much more masterful because it's a practice, to hear and know what's true for us, how to make decisions, how to move forward in our life, and that makes our life a lot better. It's easier, it's more fulfilling. And one of the things, just even generally for energy, to become more aware of the energy in and around you. So, for example, notice its effect on you. If you're with a lot of people, how do you feel afterwards? Do you feel good? Do you feel uplifted, expansive? Do you feel tired and drained? And notice when you walk into rooms, like, does it feel good in the space, or does it feel like, ooh, something's heavy here? Just become more aware of the energy in and around you, and that will put you more in touch in your own life as well.
And then I talked about this a little bit more earlier, but tuning inward to find your answers. So really yep, you can learn things and see things from the outside, then take it back inside and, okay, what's true for me here? And then what's my next step? Asking internally, and then following this guidance will be practices that totally support you in living a life that, again, is more fulfilling and joyful and connected. And these are all tools and things that can be developed and strengthened. So don't feel like, oh, I don't have any of these, or I don't do this. You just start where you are, and they can all be developed and strengthened.
Awesome. So we're not going to be reading each other's minds immediately. Not that you do that.
No.
But maybe with some practice.
Do that.
Too funny. Oh, that's great. Sorry. I think I saw a television show that triggered that for me. I was like, man, that guy's good.
Well, if you have a pretty precocious child, they're already reading your mind, as a parent. So, you probably had that experience.
Yes. That and a pair of Shih Tzus, yeah.
That's right.
Don't even think the word treat. So, it sounds like really cool things are happening for you. I'm excited, for what you're doing, because this is such a cool science to be involved in, and it makes me more and more curious, to learn more myself. So what is next for you? Or is there something you're currently working on that you would like to tell us about?
Sure, I would love to. Well, personally, speaking of transitions and helping people in transitions, we are heading into a move as a family, as part of the family, and I'll say more about that, out of the state of Colorado and to a location really to be determined. We don't know just yet, but it's in the works. And our children, one is graduating from high school, one from college, and they're going to be going on their own path. So we'll soon to be empty nesters in a new community, which will be very exciting, interesting, and sad all at the same time, because that's life, right? It's not just one thing. It's a lot of things. So that's kind of big for me at this point. And then professionally, it will be bringing my energetic IQ body of work out more widely into the world. And then currently, at this moment, I'm opening up my calendar to work with a few select women who are navigating a lot of transitions or entering a brand new territory or have some big turning points in their life, and they're really ready and wanting to come out the other side stronger and more in command of their life and results. So just a few people. I'm not working with a lot of people right now. I'm really focused in, but that is what I'm up to as of this moment.
Oh, that's exciting. So, listeners, in a minute she's going to tell you how to get in touch with her, so don't delay, because that calendar's going to fill up. Hey, don't want to put any pressure on you or anything, so. Anyway, so back to you, Tami. What is the best way for our listeners to reach you? How can they find you?
Best way is to email me at Tami@TamiGulland.com, and my name is spelled Tami at TamiGulland.com. And then you can also visit my website at www.tamigulland.com to take my energetic IQ quiz. So this is a way to really get a pulse on where you're at right now, and it's the first step to uncover what else is possible for you. It's a really great exercise to help you focus in on what's happening right now and where do you want to go.
Man, that sounds like something I need to do, definitely. Well, I might look into that. Terrific. Awesome. Well, that's nice that you offer that so that people can kind of start getting a taste of and some feedback on where they are and see if that's a good fit for them. So that's awesome. Well, now's the time that we kind of wrap up the show, and I typically try to pull out a few characteristics or key points that kind of struck me, along the way. And there were a couple things that really touched me in terms of, you talking about helping people make their biggest contribution and own their own power and to trust themselves. And I I don't know if men do it as frequently as I think we women do, but very often we question ourselves, or we have second thoughts, or we doubt. I think men do it too. They probably just not as often as maybe I do it. So let me just speak for myself and not all women on the planet. But I thought, that seemed really, really important to me. And then the part where you talked about being present in your body and just reconnecting, and you said like your bottom on the chair, or your feet on the ground, and all of a sudden my feet went to the ground, and my attention went to that. And it's like, oh yeah, how often do I neglect my feet, even thinking about my feet. And I'm noticing that my left one is aching a little. So, it's like, oh, I need to probably get back in touch, but that's part of that grounding thing. And I know that, so often I am in my head. I'm way up there in the clouds. Oh, I got to do this, and I've got all these to-dos and weird energy going on, like swirling around above my head of the things. They're not just to-dos, but things to think about or experiences I'm recalling. And that's not present. That's someplace else. That's not present in my body. So I might just do a little trick that I have other people, my coaching clients do, and that is I tell them to put sticky notes around their house. So I think I'm going to put a sticky note on my mirror that says, think about your feet, or just feet. Mm-hmm. And then, maybe another one that says, pay attention to your shoulders. Where are your shoulders? Are they rounded, or are they back and up strong, feeling strong, just to help me to develop some body awareness, if you will. And that's totally different than what does my body look like in the mirror. This is just like getting in contact with my body. That awareness, I can see, could really, just those simple things could really help me be more in touch with, like, my authentic energy. So when I step into a crowded room, or an event on which, or interacting with the neighbors or whatever, I can be more solid in who I am and not separate from my body. That's what I'm taking away from that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were two other things you said that were associated with, like, being in your body and turning inward. And you said asking yourself, is this true for me, or what's true for me? And it's like, oh, yeah. How often we're trying to do the pros and cons list and when we're making a decision, or we have an emotion and we're like, why do I feel that way? And I think if we were to stop and say, well, is this true for me? Is that really my stuff or somebody else's? That could be a really good insight. Because I, like you, pick up other people's energy and don't even know I'm carrying it around. And, like, sometimes I have to take a shower at the end of the day, just to get the energy off of me. I may be clean otherwise.
Yes, I get it.
Yeah. So I think that was some of the things that were real big takeaways for me. So thank you so much for, just sharing your insights and just who you are in such an authentic way. Because, I don't interview a lot of people that have the skill sets you do. I'd like to interview more of them because I think they're interesting and exciting. And I learned something new and different, too. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we close up our program?
Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. It's just been a pleasure and a treat, and I am so excited for you and all the listeners to begin to play with some of these tools and just see what happens for you. Of course, there's many, many more, but start where you're at and be gentle with yourself. That's the key.
Definitely. I think that's a really good recommendation. Well, that's great. Well, cool. I want to thank everybody for listening today. If you enjoyed the show, please give it a 5-star rating and review us and subscribe, because we're going to have really cool people coming in the weeks to come. And this has been your host, Cheryl C. Jones of SimplyTheBestResults.com, and I look forward to seeing you or knowing you're there, if I don't see you, in the future. So you guys take care, and thank you for joining us for getting Simply the Best Results. Take care, you all.